Guys who are currently watching a clip from our podcast, The Fellas, the full podcast is available exclusively on Spotify with video for free. So go ahead and follow us on Spotify. It actually helps us out more than you could imagine. Are there any things, and you probably don't want to reveal too much here, but you've done so many different deals, so many kind of different routes, all this crazy stuff. Yeah. Are there any ideas you have for Gumball in the future where you're like, you know what, this is what we need to do to just take it to the next level? Anything you...
I mean, for the rally itself, it's quite hard because we've sort of been to most places. Yeah. You know, I mean, you know,
it's a country you haven't covered.
Well, we took it to North Korea in 2000.
Ain't no way,
fucking hell.
That's actually that's on my bucket list is to do North Korea.
Yeah.
Well, and my girlfriend said she'll never let me go. But if I said to her, I'm going on,
if you want,
I'm going on Gumball, and she won't know. She won't know. She won't know that I'm in fucking North Korea. So wait, you went to North Korea. I don't know if we're going to go
back there. I have to say that, but we did do it.
Wait, can you just explain that? So, sorry, when did you go there? And obviously, I guess it wasn't like it is now. Like,
no, it was. Well, what's it like now in terms of how's it?
I guess it's still nuts.
It's crazy. I mean, yeah. So
how do you unload 150 supercars into fucking North Korea?
So we did
for jokes.
So we did that year. We started in San Francisco. We drove San Fran, LA, San Diego, San Diego to Las Vegas. Flew everyone from Las Vegas, the polar opposite from Vegas. You know, there couldn't be more
City,
of an extreme.
Did people know where they were going?
They did.
Because
by this point,
I feel like they need to know if they're going to North Korea.
I mean, they were very scared.
Guys,
I have to admit,
Korea.
you know, people were a bit sort of bit nervous about going there. And we go to North Korea, and we spend one night in North Korea where we're hosted by Kim Jong-il, who was the leader at the time, Kim Jong-un's dad.
No
and
way.
I would be very scared.
They put on a concert for us in what's called the Mayday Stadium, which is the world's biggest sports stadium. Like,
did it actually look like it, though, or is it like how North Korea will just say
it looked like it? It was. They had 150,000 people performing for us in the show on the field and half of the stadium, where you got these people like turning over the
cards,
clapperboards, sort of thing. You know, it looked like a LED screen that was actually turning the pages of a book.
Oh my god!
What?
I mean, and you can actually find that on YouTube a little bit as well.
Okay.
If you search a little bit of Gumball and Pyongyang or something, there's a fantastic news clip on there from the Pyongyang North Korean news channel, or the only channel on their news that night, of like an interview with me and everyone there, and Jackass guys, Bam, and all that.
The Jackass guys made it over there.
They did, yeah, because they came on the rally every year for about 10 years then after that first one. So, yeah.
But the MTV crew didn't go on that one.
They did.
Oh, they did?
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
And North Korea were just like, that's sweet.
Well, I'd got to know people in high places by this point, and I'd got an invite there, and I ended up going there probably like for about a 2-year period before this. I probably went every 3 months. And got to know the leaders there, and
were you not a little bit?
You're in a different zone,
bro. Going over there, like, because like I said, this is something on my bucket list, so I'm gonna take this opportunity now.
Yeah.
Can you just tell me, like, what's it like? Is it quite intimidating? Is it scary at all? Or did you go over there? I mean, I guess once you go once, you're probably
bizarre.
A bit okay.
Yeah, I mean, once you've been there, you sort of, I wouldn't say I fell in love with the place, but it's got an intrigue that kind of made me kind of want to go back and bring the rally there after I'd first been to it, in the sense that it is closed off from the rest of the world. There's I'd be sat in meetings or go for drinks with, all the ministers, let's say, all the leaders and whatever, and so, and to have some common ground, have some dialogue that you can actually kind of like relate on was really hard. I mean, we're talking like, a couple of the ones that, because basically they wouldn't let even their senior ministers really travel around the world for fear that they would defect and never come back. So even at that point, they only had one North Korean family living in New York, which was representing the UN and would go to the UN and whatever to represent them as a country. They had an embassy at that time back then in Stockholm, Denmark, and London. That's the only embassies. Most countries got an embassy in every country and a representative.
They got one in Enfield. I've seen a picture of it recently. Anyways, sorry, that was a random fact.
There's not a lot of common ground. If you're speaking to one of those ambassadors that's actually lived in London or Denmark or whatever, then you can have a dialogue with them. But the rest of them that have never been out of their country, they've never seen anything outside of their country. and they've never read anything. They didn't have the internet back then, of course, and they didn't have mobile phones, and so if you don't have the internet and you don't have a phone or you don't have access to any media, what do you know? So I could reference to them.
Don't worry about that. It literally
Sorry, I've amended it. I could reference the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, Man United, whatever, and they've not heard of anything.
Really? Not even Man United?
Not even Man United. Well, maybe Chelsea, but
should have mentioned Liverpool. They'd have been buzzing.
But no, seriously, it was really hard to sort of, and Kim Jong-il himself was really a little bit more knowledgeable than the rest, but his fascination was Disney, was America, and he loved American culture, and considering it was
tension,
US versus kind of North Korea, he actually was pretty obsessed with American culture and enjoyed it, liked it, and so it's just bizarre, and to be able to take, a couple hundred people to North Korea was incredible.
When you obviously had this deal set in and you've arranged it all, what kind of rules did you have to give out to the rally when they got there, and what's the do's and don'ts of
everyone had to put their, there's no commercial flights there, it was private plane there, and so when we were at the Pyongyang airport, everyone had to hand in their mobile phones until we were departing again, sort of thing. It was all that sort of stuff, and people weren't allowed to sort of go out on their own, sort of thing. Now some did, because we even Bam and that lot went out skateboarding that night around Pyongyang, and
right,
fucking
right,
yeah.
So Jackass were just rolling around North Korea,
but the end of that, we arrived and we'd come off a plane from Vegas and we partied all night in Vegas, and so we're all a little bit delirious anyway. And that night we sort of, whenever we land in North Korea, whatever it is, let's say at lunchtime, and we sort of check into the hotel, and then we go straight out to this big concert that they'd arranged, and then after that, there's a dinner, and then after that it's karaoke that they'd organized, which is all the leader of North Korea hosting karaoke for us.
Wow.
So everyone's completely trashed, and doing karaoke that night with North Korean leaders. That was kind of
that is
and
mental.
Everyone's getting drunk, North Korean leaders
completely.
Wow, man, what an experience. Honestly.
And the next day we headed into China. And then 2 more days of driving through China, and then we crossed the finish line in Beijing at the 2008 Olympics. So then I hired a grandstand at the Olympics for everyone to watch the athletics finals and whatever and stuff.
Gosh.
So again, they're all these fantasy trips,
Yeah.
Where would you want to go? All right, let's do that sort of thing,
the dream.
Yeah.
That is really
So where do we go next? I'm not quite sure. So going to Cuba this year is pretty special.
What's your route? Has that been announced?
Yeah. So it actually been announced a while ago. We postponed it because of COVID, obviously. First time ever we've had to not do one. But, we're back. And
is it the Toronto?
Yeah.
Toronto to Cuba.
So Toronto to Havana. Cuba. So we're starting in Canada, Toronto, go to the Indy 500, famous car race in the States, then down to Nashville, then Atlanta, then Miami, and then take all the cars by boat and a passenger plane to take all the drivers to Havana, and then we do sort of 3 days in Cuba, or 2.5 days of Cuba, sort of driving.
And Cuba's notorious, it's very vintage in the sense
obviously they're sort of similar socialist country, Castro, everything. And so obviously they're, the revolution, late 50s, means that everything sort of stood still in time, really. And the cars driving around there are 50s American cars.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So can you imagine these,
crazy.
Bugattis, Lamborghinis, whatever, driving around?
Apparently you do have to go to Cuba soon because it's
going to change.
It is starting to change.
Yeah. No, it's true.
So we'll go there eventually at some point.